So spider mites are more or less ubiquitous with greenhouse growers. We're all growing a succulent crop that's heavily irrigated. Anytime, especially in the summertime when things start to dry off, spider mites are driven in, but it's just not unusual to deal with spider mites. One of the most important things is to scout any plants that you're bringing in to make sure that you're not giving yourself a problem. So the most likely place for any early spider mites is going to be that they came in on existing plants. But I've also often found spider mites on those weeds. They'll be behind your fertilizer injection system. They'll be in a corner. They'll be behind a bench leg. And so making sure that you don't have any errant weeds growing in there to give you an initial spider mite infestation. But the same holds true for aphids and western flower thrips, is that's where they'll often come from those errant weeds that are left behind. So the only way to avoid them is to scout often, scout regularly, and scout well. And that involves looking on the bottom of plant leaves and looking at a lot of them. Sticky cards are a great thing to have. In addition, it's a challenge for growers because you really don't want to put your sticky cards right in your crop. That's kind of a pain, but yet spider mites are not highly mobile. It sure seems like they are, but they don't fly. And so if you put your sticky cards a foot above your crop, they're not good scouting tools. So it involves a lot of time looking on the bottom of leaves. And although you can see spider mites, they're not hard to observe. Our eyes get tired after a while. By the time you've looked at a lot of plants. And so I always recommend is make sure you're doing that with a hand lens. I prefer a lighted hand lens. But make sure you're doing that with a hand lens so that your eyes don't get tired and you don't miss something. And that way you can also spot their little eggs. The eggs are relatively easy. Normally they're on a vein, typically on a little bit of a stand. So it's a round orb sitting on a stand. And that gives you a pretty good idea you've got spider mites coming in. The next part of that is you're looking for, I've always heard it called a stippling. And that's where they feed. That's the damage that they do. And so as they suck the innards of the cells out, it leaves a light color stippling there. And that's a good indicator that you've got spider mites. Getting to the worst part of it, by the time you see webbing, you have more or less lost that battle. The best management practices are everything that you do normally to take good care of your crop. A good, healthy crop is just simply necessary to sell. But the scouting often is really the number one cultural practice that you need to do. Spider mites, because they're such a problem and they can damage crops so badly and make it unsaleable, like aphids, like western flower thrips, like broad mites, I recommend a strong proactive program. ProFarm, we offer biological products. They are not the greatest at eradicating a problem, and even when they're working well to eradicate a problem, they work too slow for most growers. They take days to work. And so the best thing to do is to run a very strong proactive pesticide program. And what we recommend is a rotation between Grandivo CG and Venerate CG. And they're good. They do a nice job at suppression. They will give you some, because they are stomach poisons. Over time, they will kill off a spider mite population. But I like to always tank mix them with either an insecticidal soap. There are quite a number of the potassium soaps out there, and I just want to warn everybody, please use an insecticidal soap. Often folks will hear that and they'll run for their dishwashing soap. They are very, very different things. Dishwashing soap is designed to remove grease, and therefore it will damage your plant's cuticle. The potassium salts that we use in insecticidal soaps are much gentler on plants. I like to use them at 1 or 1.5%. They tank mix really well with Grandivo and Venerate. Then there's the class of azadirachtin products. They also will help give you some control, and they also tank mix. Bavaria Bassiani products and the Izaria products. All of them will help give you some control. So the basic program is you would rotate between Grandivo and Venerate. but every time you put them out there, you are using one of these tank mix partners with that to give you some improved control, to give you an additional mode of action, and also for long-term resistance management. I think that's real important because we know that spider mites, like aphids, like Western flower thrips, they develop resistance over time. And although we haven't seen resistance to the biological products, I'm sure it can happen. The other real important part here is being aware of spider mites' life cycle. So a spider mite, when you get into the upper 70s or 80 degrees, where a lot of our greenhouses spend an awful lot of time, once they get into that range, they can go from egg to egg laying adult in as little as 7 or 8 days. So if you're a typical greenhouse grower and you like to do your applications 1 day a week, and this is not unusual, you're never going to break a population's back. You're never going to break that population down if you're always allowing some of the individuals to start laying eggs again. Eggs are really tough to control. As far as I know, there's only one miticide out there that controls eggs, and it's a synthetic product. So as you're trying to control spider mites, when you see you've got them, the first thing I recommend growers to do is to reduce your spray interval down to 4 or 5 days apart for 3 applications in a row. And you can pencil this out real easy. By the time you do that 3rd application, all their eggs have hatched, and now there's no more adults there to lay eggs. Now you can stretch out your spray program to 7 or 10 days, put a little money in the bank until your next infestation. Using the right surfactant. So spider mites are tiny. They do have the ability to get into little nooks and crannies in the plants. And one of the most important things to understand about water is it has a very high surface tension. So if when you're spraying, unless you are using a good spreading agent, and you want to use a pH neutral spreading agent for the biologicals, don't use something that's going to acidify. A lot of growers who use who are used to using synthetic products are used to acidifying their spraying solution with a buffering agent. So as long as you stay to a neutral pH, something like a Capsule, Yucca, New Film, those products are pH neutral. There are many others, by the way, then you're going to be really safe. And that's going to help break down the surface tension of the water and get into nooks and crannies. And while I have this opportunity, we've done a lot of work with fogging applications. We got a mini fogger at our lab out in Davis, California. And one of the big requests we've been getting from growers is for fogging information. We do have a fogging bulletin that's available. It's at our website, or folks can contact me directly. I'll gladly send that to them or send them a link. And fogging is a really great way of labor saving. And at the same time, those super fine droplets suspend in the air. And since spider mites live on the bottom of leaves, that's where they spend most of their time. A fogging application is a great way to get to where they are.